Maria Baltazzi, welcome to Sauce of Life. I'm super excited for this interview because you are one of the most interesting people. I love your story, everything about you that I know so far, and I feel like I want to learn a lot more. Trying to figure out where even to start, so I'll just let you introduce yourself, and then I'll start asking questions.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to speak with you. And as you said, my name is Maria Baltazzi, and I am the author of Take a Shot at Happiness, How to Write, Direct, and Produce the Life You Want. And that is an award-winning book. And it comes really out of my meltdown in my life when my career in television was just getting to be a little bit too much for me, and my personal life wasn't working out. And I was sitting in my office in Los Angeles, and it was sunny outside, but it was certainly dark where I was sitting. And I just said, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want this moment to define me now or ever. And I started reading books to uplift my morale, my happiness, and one book turned into meditation classes, turned into certifications, and eventually a PhD in conscious living. And I have a background in television. And I was one of the original producers of Survivor, CBS's long-running hit Survivor. And, being in the entertainment industry is very demanding. It's at least for me, it was a 24/7 endeavor, and eventually it just was not sustainable for me. And I wanted to do something for my overall well-being, my mental health, and I made that conscious choice, and I have been choosing it every day since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot to unpack, everything you just said there.
Yeah.
Holy wow. You said something that caught my attention there. And it's still rattling around in my head because it's a beautiful statement. It was sunny outside, but it was dark inside. Mm-hmm. As a life coach and mentor to many people, that sentiment is something that rings with me. And I was a suicide interventionist in the military prior to that.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I am amazed at the number of people that walk around with a smile on their face, but they're going through a complete battle in their mind. If you don't mind just going into that a little bit more, it was sunny outside, but dark inside. And that became the catalyst of you getting your PhD and becoming this awesome person that you are now.
Oh, well, that's kind of you to say that. I think about this a lot, and I've thought about it certainly in my own journey, and also when there has been loss in my family, when I lost my sister to cancer, when I lost my father 3 months later to the day, and eventually when I lost my mother a year ago. And as you're saying, you see people who are smiling, but you don't know what's really going on in their life. You don't know, what are their demons? What are their losses? And I think that we, as a whole, often wear these smiles, and we're not reaching out and saying, I don't feel good. It's almost as if it's not okay to not be okay, if that makes sense. And when in fact, it's being human. We have our ups and downs in life, and that's really why I wrote my book. Now, when I was at my darkest point, and I made that very conscious choice, because I wrote a book about happiness, yes. People often ask me, well, what's the secret to happiness? And I always say choice. Wow. And not only is it choice, because that's only part A, the other part is that it's choice backed up by conscious, intentional, consistent activities. Yes. You are doing things every day, You know, you go to the gym to get that great body, those muscles. And the only way you keep those muscles is by keep going to the gym. That's the same thing with your happiness and your well-being. You know, you learn, my book is about what I identified for myself when I was sitting in you know, my dark part of the world. Yeah. I said, okay, what are the things that have made me happy or I think will make me happy? And I identified 8 qualities, you know, virtues. I call them core values. In my book, I refer to them as happiness essentials. Okay. 8 happiness essentials that I think universally help uplift one's well-being. And the reason that I feel that these are important to learn and why we want to pay attention to our happiness and well-being. Everybody says, oh, yes, universally, you want to be happy. And a lot of people will even say, yes, I feel happy in some aspect of their life, but there's some aspect of their life where it could be improved. Right. And the thing about learning these core values, what I call these 8 happiness essentials, it's for resilience. You learn the qualities and virtues and habits of happy people so you can navigate those challenging times in a way that is productive, that is uplifting. That you have the awareness to recognize when things are not going so great sooner. That you have now the emotional tools to navigate those challenging times, and you get out on the other side being more emotionally intact instead of wounded. So, while it sounds fluffy, oh, happiness, it's actually a really serious thing.
I don't think it sounds fluffy at all, especially given the number of people that are walking around. In the military, I had so many people that I would help that, you know, and it didn't matter the rank. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's an argument to be made that the higher the rank goes, if people haven't found their purpose in life, they haven't found that thing that makes them happy other than the military, then when it's time to take that uniform off, they're the ones getting ready to kill themselves. They're the ones that don't know which direction they want to head or what they want to do. I'm curious about these 8 core principles that you have and that you've identified. And when you and I first connected, you started speaking, and within literally seconds, I understood. And I was like, oh my God, I need to interview you. I want to pick your brain. Aww. And being in front of the camera is one thing. I want to dive into this book, dissect this book, truly to learn what is in here because it's going to make me better. But what are some of the 8 that are core values that you found that you help people with?
Well, I'll tell you the 3 foundational ones, the first 3 that I think you build on. And the first one being faith. However you define that for yourself, whatever that religious doctrine is or isn't, call it the creator, the source, the universe, that you have some kind of faith that is guiding you, that you can put your hope, your solace into. And I think the next one is love. I think that is what we all are, no matter who we are. I think in there is love. It might be covered up, but it's there. I think love is what builds our relationships. It's what connects us. And then I think it's health. And I think your best insurance plan is not the one you buy. It's the one that involves taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit. So when I talk about really happiness overall, I talk about it in terms of your whole being. I use the word well-being because that's the most universally understood word. However, it really is whole being. You need it all. You need what's going on up here and spiritually. You need to have all of that together. And you need to have, your body, you take care of it because it's a vessel. It's a vessel for all that goodness and all the things you want to do in life. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't climb the mountains you want to climb. You can't build the businesses you want to build. You can't love the people you want to love because you don't have that ability either emotionally, spiritually, or physically. So all of it matters.
That is amazing. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about something that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, the metronomes, and how no matter how you start them, eventually their energy synchronize and they move in alignment. So this conversation is proof positive to me that God, the creator, the universe, the hand that guides all, however you define it out there in the audience, however you define it, that energy that flows through and permeates everything is working towards my better good, because you've said phrases that I've said truly. So I appreciate that. Faith, love, and what was the
health.
third one? Health. Mental, spiritual, physical health. Absolutely amazing. And then earlier you said something about, it's a truth that I found, that with all of the successful people that I've studied, the truly successful people, not the ones that are dependent on some type of material success, but the ones that are truly happy beings. They are people that had a dream or vision. They took action towards it and they never gave up. And earlier you mentioned something along that, where you're taking action, where you have a dream or vision, you have something that you can move towards, and you can move towards it with faith, right? That you're worthy of this thing, but even that worthiness may involve love. And you take the action, it's informed action. And you said something along those lines where you're taking action, but not just spinning your wheels. If you want to become healthy, you go to the gym, and you mentioned something like that, and then just not giving up. Is there examples where you thought about giving up and something happened that caused you to keep going?
I think the most obvious would be writing my book.
Okay.
And it took a while for me to write the book, because as I was writing the book, I was on my journey, and my journey took its twists and turns. And there were points where I thought, do I really have anything to say that people really want to hear? That self-doubt, came into it. And it's just, it's so hard to sit and write and look at that computer screen that's just blank and fill it with words. And, so there was, it was hard. And we don't like to do hard things. We want to do fun, easy things. And so there were definitely points along my book journey where I just thought, I don't know. And at one point, I lost my book. I was doing a show in London, and I was at a bar, as you do. And I went to go to the bathroom, and I left my computer in my bag with my friend, who I thought was watching my bag, and somebody took it.
No.
And I didn't have it backed up on a hard drive. I lost the whole book.
Wow.
Fortunately, and I mean, I was despondent. I was so upset. I thought, how am I going to do this again? And then I remembered I had sent early chapters to a very close friend of mine who fortunately kept them. Nice. So even though I had done a lot of work since I had sent those pages to my friend, at least I still had the baseline that I could, work from, and trying to be optimistic that things happen for a reason.
Yes.
I thought, you know what? Whatever I lost and I'm not remembering to write now, it didn't need to be in the book. And that's okay. I'm good.
You're not alone in that situation. Bob Proctor had that similar thing happen where he was writing a book. He sat it down somewhere. He ended up losing that book. And he said, very same thing. what I'm supposed to write was not in that original book.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I can tell that you're a person, and I could tell this right away. You are a person that sets your mind to something. And when you dive into something, you commit to it, and you're committed to excellence. Mm. And though I don't know you at some amazing level, we haven't been friends for 20 years or anything like that, that is something that you just emanate. It just emanates out of you. You are someone who sets your mind to something. You came in the studio and your history is in film. And I watched you observing everything like this. I watched it. And in my world, previous world, they would say game recognizes game. If I stepped into a restaurant or if I stepped into a kitchen, I would instantly start seeing things, right? I don't eat everywhere. So to see you come in and start pointing things out or start observing and then checking angles and everything, I was like, okay. So now knowing that about you, knowing that that's your personality type or a trait that you possess, I'm even more excited, truly, to dive into this book. The fact that you set your sights on happiness and that you decided to put yourself and who you are and how you made it to this journey, how to write and direct, produce the life that you want into this book. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
You also, award-winning director, producer. We were talking about you recognizing somebody up in Alaska that was having an issue with mosquitoes and they wanted to quit, but they said they were good, but you recognized in them that they weren't good. Where does that originate? Did you always have a vision as a kid? I was recently talking with a friend, Jennifer D'Elia. She's another producer and director. And she said that since she was a little girl, she imagined herself directing movies because she was directing the movie of her life. Where does your vision and your talent come from in that field?
As far as I can remember, I always have liked images and words and music coming together. You know, as a kid, and I mean, even in high school and early college, I didn't know what a producer was or a director. I didn't know those terms. I just knew what I gravitated towards. And throughout my life and throughout my career, I've always gravitated to three very specific areas. One has been storytelling.
Okay.
The other one has been travel, and my storytelling and traveling have gone hand in hand. And then now it's well-being, it's happiness. You know, it's how are you as an individual, you know, viewing the world and living your life. You know, and I've always liked stories that have been inspirational and aspirational and motivational. I mean, I like a good blockbuster Hollywood film as much as the next person, but I like those stories that are uplifting. So, you know, whether it's doing a show or writing a book about happiness or taking somebody on safari in Africa, you know, it all threads that I'm touching somebody in a way that is inspiring them, that is motivating them. I care about that because it's not just me that I want to live my best life. I want everybody to live their best life because when we're all living our best life, we're going to have a better society.
Yes.
It translates.
Yes.
You know? So when I started writing the book and not having confidence in writing, when I started talking about my book and not having confidence in speaking, I had to get outside of myself. I had to put my ego somewhere else and say, thank you very much for wanting to protect me, but now just be my cheerleader instead of my protector.
Wow.
You know, because the message is bigger than the fear. It's not about me. It's about whatever from God, the universe, that gets translated, channeled through me and into my stories, whether it's film, television, or book, or an article. It's about helping others, and that's the big motivation for me.
I find that to be true. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. So I started writing a memoir. I've been through a lot of childhood traumas. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. Of the original 10, I went through all 10 in multiples. And then on the extended scale, when they added another 5, I have all 4 of those, some of those in multiples. And what I came to realize is that nothing happened to me. They all happened for me. And when I accepted that, and sometimes I have to remind myself of that also when I begin telling these stories, I realized that in the military, I had become the change that I needed in the world. I became a suicide interventionist to compensate for the times that I wanted to end my life and didn't feel worthy. I became a sexual assault victim advocate for the times where my body was violated. I became a domestic violence victim advocate for the violence that I witnessed against my mom. I am not a substance abuser, but I worked in those circuits of helping people recover. And it seems that you're a person that has dedicated your life to the betterment of others, which I agree with you, raises the vibration of the planet. I noticed something else that we have in common, though. I'll say the word God, which I don't believe.
I'm not allergic to the word.
I don't believe it's something that you can actually define, because the moment that, in my opinion, the moment that you define something or label it, you have limited it. And I believe that there's an energy that permeates and penetrates everything that is unlimited and is infinite. My brain doesn't have the capacity to grasp it. However, I'll catch myself saying, if I say God, I'll follow it shortly with saying the creator or the universe or I've asked myself where that comes from in myself. And I'm curious if you've ever thought about that for yourself. Is that something where you're just trying to be inclusive? Or
you mean using the word God or creator or?
Yeah, using the word God. Is that something?
The word God, well, I mean, I grew up in a family that I was baptized in the Greek Orthodox Church. I attend the Greek Orthodox Church. However, I consider myself to be spiritual, not religious, because it is God of 1,000 faces. Now, and God, to me, this is my personal belief. You don't have to believe it. It's God is in everything and everywhere. So much of how the practice of God happens is cultural and depends on where you are in the world. If I was in India, I'd be Hindu, So it just depends on your upbringing, I think, in large part, where you get your ideas initially about faith. And even though I grew up with it, I can't say that as a youth that religion or faith or God or spirituality were consciously huge. I think it was always there, but something that I really thought about. Because going to the Greek Orthodox Church, the liturgies in Greek, in ancient Greek, and I don't speak Greek. So you had a fundamental not understanding. So you learn to feel the energy that is there, that is present. And as I went along in my journey, I just was finding myself like a moth to light. Anything that revolved around spirituality, no matter what it was, I just wanted to learn it. I just wanted to be around it. I wanted to absorb it. So that's why I say God of 1,000 faces, and whatever you want to call it, that is highly personal. You have to sort that out yourself. Your belief system, you need to work that one out. You need to spend that time. But for me, I talk to God all day long.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my alpha and omega, and I'm sticking to it.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I help people do is to write their book of life. Mm-hmm. And for me, one of the processes of that is telling someone, if God is sitting in front of you right now, I limit them to 4 pages. So in bullet format, write your most amazing life that you can imagine in 4 pages, bullet point format. And then it's an exercise where after that, we'll actually learn how to put action steps behind the various things that they've written in the book. It has been a challenge for me now because I see that more people have faith that God will cure them of cancer or that something will cure them of cancer. They can believe that they can be cured of cancer or healed of cancer, but they don't necessarily believe that they can be an actress after age 40 or that they can open a restaurant and succeed because somebody has told them that that's not the thing. They've always wanted to do this thing, but they don't have the faith in themselves and then in a higher power to help them facilitate that. And it seems like when I look at this, take a shot, even the title of your book is an action step. Take a shot. Like, I interpret that as believe in yourself. Take a shot on yourself. Take a stab at this thing that you call happiness, right? Which is the greatest actualization of you. That's how you're going to find happiness, correct? Mm-hmm. What are the methods that you use? Going back to your book, what are the methods that you use? You have the 8 pillars, but how do you get someone to believe in themselves? It's one thing to have faith in God, but so many people have that faith or say they have that faith, but they don't have faith in themselves.
Well, as I think, any of these happiness essentials in my book, it's you have to want to. You have to make that choice. Because unless you make the choice to want to learn, to want to change, to want to be motivated, to want to be open, whatever descriptive, you want to fill in the blank with, it has to be a choice. It has to be something you want to do. Yeah, I've dated a couple of alcoholics in my dating journey. And the thing that I learned from those relationships, it didn't matter how much I loved. It didn't matter how much I cried. It didn't matter how much I threatened, how much I begged. Unless those guys wanted to stop drinking, nothing was going to happen. And I think that that's the same with your well-being, your happiness, your choice, in having faith and being a loving person and taking care of your health. You have to make that a choice.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then you do the work. There
goes again, that recurring theme. Make a decision or a choice and take action behind it.
Yeah.
And then don't give up. Don't quit. You have to keep going back into it. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Like the simplicity of it. I heard a quote once that says, you must stand guard at the doorway of your mind. And when I go into certain circuits, I talk to people and I let them know, you go into some of the best nightclubs or you try to get into some of the best nightclubs and you can't get in because there's a security guard because they're managing the quality of the people that are entering there. And yet I find that a lot of people allow the thoughts and the energies of everyone else around them to kind of shape who they are. Is that anything that you address in the book, like standing guard at the doorway of your mind?
Oh, yes. I several times throughout the book. So actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to offer some things that people can do. I mean,
please.
And these are things that I do every single day.
Okay.
Every single day, these are my go-tos. And the first thing is I begin my day, I begin at praying, but also meditating. Meditation, I think that when I discovered meditating and whatever practice you want to do, whether it's mantra or focused or however you feel comfortable, I think a meditation practice is so good in terms of, calming the body and opening the mind.
Is there much of a difference between praying and meditating? I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. There's a saying that praying is talking to God and meditating is listening.
Okay.
So that's the way I look at it.
I'm going to chew on that while you continue your thoughts. I love this. Sorry, go ahead.
And so, so that's one thing, is that I meditate, and I do 3 different practices depending on what it is that I feel I need at the time. You know, when I feel like I need to be closer to God, there's a Christian meditative prayer that I do. When I just want to sit in presence, as in being present to this moment, it's a mindfulness practice. And then when I want to be transcendent, going beyond the chatter of my mind, and it's a type of transcendental meditation that's taught by Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
And it's called Primordial sound meditation. And when you come into the world, the universe is making a particular sound.
Right.
And so that sound becomes your mantra.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
The thought of that. I've never thought that before, so I appreciate that. But at the moment that I was born, the earth was in a certain resonance. Mm-hmm. And everything around me formed a specific sound that I heard at that moment that will never be replicated again. So
yeah, and that's the mantra that you're taught. It goes back to the Vedic tradition, and there's actually one of 108 different sounds, and it changes according to the seasons and the moon and time of day and where you are in the world. That the sound is yours.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one, meditation.
Okay.
Meditation is a daily practice for me, meditating and praying. And then the other one is something that I learned from one of my favorite teachers, Dr. Rick Hansen, who is a neuropsychologist. And he's also very well known in the mindfulness meditation world. He does a lot with UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. That's all about positive psychology and happiness. And the thing that I learned from him that I love, it's called savoring the good. Mm. And that's where you consciously, and my book helps people do all of these things. I have activities throughout my book that reinforces what they're learning and helps them become what I call happiness explorers, understanding what happiness means to them. So you savor the good. You know, you look for positive things that make you feel good during your day, and you savor them for 20 to 30 seconds. And what you do is when you stop to savor them for 20 to 30 seconds, first of all, you're coming really present to that moment. You're becoming focused to that moment. And then as you hold on to that moment, that experience for 20 to 30 seconds, you're creating a memory that gets installed into your brain.
Right.
And you do this often enough, consistently enough, you are now starting to create a positive pathway away from the negative, because we are predisposed to have a negative bias that goes back to the time of the cavemen, when you had a negative bias to protect you from saber-toothed tigers, where you were always having to be vigilant for dangers, which we don't have to that extent in modern society. So you retrain your brain to look for positive moments. And when you do this often enough, a couple of things are happening in it. You have that tendency now to go away from the negative and go towards the positive. But also when you are hitting challenging times, you have a storehouse of positive memories that you can draw on. Yes. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I had a talk that I had to give in front of a lot of people, and I was nervous about it. And so when I would go hike and practice my talk, before I would start my practice, I would consciously remember all of the other times where I gave a talk and I was successful, to give me that confidence, like you can do it because you've done it before. You have proof. You're not kidding yourself. You have proof that you can do it. And I think that that's really huge, because I think people will have this lack of confidence because they don't have proof that they've done it before.
Yes.
But if you can make a storehouse of memories and go back to them.
Right.
So that's the second thing that I do. So we have meditating, and then we have savoring the good. And then the third one is what I call thought stopping. And this really talks to the thing that I hear so often from people who say, well, I can't meditate. I have too many negative thoughts. Or what do I do with all of those chatty negative thoughts that are so sticky and they won't go away? Well, this comes out of cognitive behavior therapy, and it's not a very glamorous name, but it says what it is thought stopping. That's the practice. It's thought stopping. And so through meditation, when you're opening up your awareness, you start to recognize when you're having a negative thought that doesn't feel good. I mean, your thoughts are either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So if you're having an unpleasant, unproductive, negative thought, and you have the awareness of it as it's happening, then you can do something about it.
Yes.
Because if you think, it's like you have a thought, you have a thought, you have a thought, you have a thought. Well, in between this thought and this thought, there's a little gap. And in that gap is the opportunity to choose another thought.
Yes.
So when you consciously are aware of an unproductive thought and you stop it, and the way you stop it is you can have a rubber band around your wrist that you snap. You can clap your hands, or you can literally say, stop it. Or what I do is, if you see me doing this, I'm shifting my thoughts to something positive, something more productive. So you do these things. So ultimately, you are impacting your well-being. You're impacting your mindset to be more positive. And I actually like to use the words productive or constructive, because people can think, positive thinking, that's a little Pollyanna. And I think it's actually more accurate when you say that it's productive or constructive versus unproductive or unconstructive. Because when it's unproductive and unconstructive, you're tearing yourself down. Mm. But when it's positive or constructive, you're building yourself up. And that's what you want to do.
Constantly building yourself up.
Mm-hmm. So those are my three go-tos.
So
meditating, savoring the good, and thought stopping. Stopping your negative thoughts, catching them, and redirecting them consciously. And you might have to do this a gazillion times, but you do it. And this becomes your habit. I do these things every day.
Multiple times. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. There's some saying that it says, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Right?
Mm-hmm. You just keep doing it.
No, that's actually one of the exercises that I do for people. You talked about snapping rubber band. So sometimes I have a tattoo that says I am, because I've struggled in the past with feeling worthy or understanding that I'm guided. So I have a tattoo. Sometimes I'll rub I am if I'm feeling nervous about something, or I'll spin this. But when people interact with me, I'll let them know. So you have WhatsApp and you have iMessage, and I'll let them know that when you're having a negative day or negative thought, because I mentor people, and of course they're going to have negative experiences that they want to chat with me about. It's like, write me on WhatsApp. When you have positive things and we're going to build each other up, write me an iMessage. And what I've found that it has done for people, it has literally made them stop to think, which one of these apps am I going to write him on? And
can I take that one?
Please.
I like that.
And enforce it. If they write negative in iMessage, you can respond back with a very forceful message. Like, this thread is not for this. This is not the place for that. Write me on WhatsApp and I'll get back to you when I'm ready to deal with that, when I'm in the right vibration to allow myself that negative energy. But I don't want that negative energy to impact what I'm doing right now. So there's a little practical thing for mine. What I love about what you just said is so many people, as I navigate different circuits and mastermind groups and all of these things, a lot of people will tell you what to do, but not a lot of people tell you how to do it. And so I appreciate that you take the time to add practicality to this and tell people how to achieve these things. So that makes you a little bit of a unicorn out there.
Thank you. Well, I tell them throughout the book at the end of every chapter. So when I structured the book, I structured it like I would be structuring an episodic television show where every episode is a standalone story with a beginning, middle, and end. Well, every chapter has certain elements that relate to one theme. So, there's just a chapter on faith. There's just a chapter on love. And I always begin with a big overview, what I call, looking through my viewfinder. And then what I call, I use camera terminology just to relate back to my background.
And you shouldn't apologize for
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm just saying where I came from, not apologizing. I thought it was kind of a clever idea.
It is.
And so then I have 8 bullet points that I call snapshots, and they all relate to whatever that chapter's theme is. And then afterwards, I write a summation, which is the big picture. And then I have activities that relate to each of the bullet points, each of the snapshots that I discussed in the chapter. So then people can take their iPhones and take a picture. I give them guided camera, iPhone, Android, mobile phone photography prompts that relate to what they just read, as well as a journaling prompt. And then I put all of the activities into an app. And then that app is something we all carry our phones with us. So people can always be working on their happiness. They can be working on gratitude or love or whatever area of their life they feel needs to be fortified. And I intentionally wrote my book in a way that each chapter is a standalone, that you can just go to that chapter and get what you need. Because as we go through life, you have different needs. Sometimes you need to work more on being forgiving. Sometimes you need to work more on being loving. So you can just go back to that chapter and work on that and do the activities that will help fortify, help boost. And that's what I mean by becoming a happiness explorer, is that you use the book as your guide, as your prompt to explore. What does faith really mean to you? How does that specifically fit? How faith fits into my world of happiness and well-being is going to be different than yours.
Yes.
And my book helps you to explore that.
That is beautiful. It doesn't sound like you've written a book. It sounds like you've written a life guide. And I appreciate that. This is something that could go on, but I want to be respectful of your time. To end this, I have a question for you. If this were the only time that anyone ever saw you or heard you speak, or the final time that anyone saw or heard you speak, what would be the message, or what would be something that you would want them to take away?
To choose happiness and then actively, intentionally, consistently do something about it.
Wow. Where can they find the book, and where can they find out more about you?
The book can be ordered anywhere online. It can be Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Goodreads. And then you can find me at my name, at Maria Baltazzi, all the usual places, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I also am a meditation teacher on Insight Timer. So just at Maria Baltazzi. And what else? Oh, I have the companion app in the App Store at Apple, soon to be Android, and there's going to be an online course that will be out sometime this year.
Beautiful. Maria, thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. This has really been a great conversation. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege speaking to you.